morning, astronomy folks. What I'm going to go over with you right now is your rise and set times assignment that is due at the end of break. This involves the right ascension and declination systems, as well as some of the material that we're going over in lab on Wednesday, September 30th. So I'm going to go over it quickly with you. If you come to class on the 30th, you're going to get some more information that will also help you. So for each of these different objects, you're expected to fill in this table. And the way the table is set up is there's 1 or 2 rows given to you, and the rest you need to figure out on your own. So for the first object, and the one I'm going to do with you, the object is Saturn, and we need to list the rest of the information across. So I'm going to minimize this, so all you see at the bottom here is the information I need for just Saturn. And in the rest of my table here, I'm going to have Stellarium open, because that's how I'm going to find the information I need. So here we are in Stellarium, and by default, Stellarium takes us to about 8 o'clock on the night that we're doing this. So this is September 30th at 9 o'clock, and it has us facing north. I'm going to change up a couple of settings. First of all, I'm going to drop the constellation lines in there because I think that helps me a bit. I'm also, on this view settings up here, I'm also going to add, I always like having the ecliptic there, and I'm also going to add the meridian line. The meridian line is a line that goes from north through zenith to south. It tells us when an object moves across from the eastern half to western half of the sky. It also tells us when an object is at its highest point, because when an object crosses this line, we say that it's transiting, moving from one half to the other. And for all of the objects going through the sky, the ones that actually do cross this meridian, when they cross it, they're at their highest point, and they're therefore transiting. So we're going to use that term on the worksheet down here, and it's one of the things that you need to find for each of these objects. Okay, so we've got the meridian line, we've got the constellations. Well, now we need our coordinate grid. Now, I know we're used to this azimuthal grid right here. This is what we've talked about the last few days. We're actually going to move away from the azimuthal grid to the equatorial grid. The equatorial grid is the one that we use for most of astronomy, and it's explained in other tutorials on your worksheet. So there we go. Equatorial grid, meridian, and ecliptic all put up there, as well as the constellations. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn off the atmosphere here. That way, if the sun's up for any of my calculations, I still see the stars. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this menu here, and here we go. So to find Saturn, I know I have to go look south. If you don't know that already, you could type in Saturn in the search menu, and it would find it for you. And here we are facing south instead, and we see Jupiter, and just to the left of it here is good old Saturn. Now, if we look at the information that I have to provide for Saturn, the first thing I have to provide is the constellation that it's in. And it's pretty much between Sagittarius and Capricorn. I'm not going to nail you if you get either of these. If you put either of these, I'm going to put Capricorn, although it still might be in Sagittarius. Okay, its right ascension and declination are going to be here if I click on it. I'm not going to go too detailed here, but I notice the right ascension is 19 hours and 49 minutes. So I'll go ahead and type that in, 19 hours and then 49, and we're going to use the traditional minutes abbreviation. And its declination for us is negative 21 degrees and 22 minutes. So, and I have to change that degree to a superscript, which I do using the font menu. Okay, so now I have to figure out when Saturn rises. So when does Saturn rise, and how do I figure this out? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the clock over here. So I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to start running the time back. So I'm going to pause my clock, and I'm just going to start running it back hour by hour. So here we go as I run it back, hour by hour. Oh, oops, Saturn sits somewhere in there. So let's go ahead and run it back by minute. I see Saturn hitting the horizon at right about 3:30 or 15:30. I could round to the nearest half hour, so we'll go with 3:30 p.m. That's where Saturn's hitting the horizon off to the east. Okay, the next thing I need is when Saturn transits. So if I run my clock forward here, I'm looking for when it crosses that green line. So I'm going to go here, back a little bit, and there it is. That's when Saturn's the best viewed. It's highest in the sky, and it looks like that's at about 8 o'clock at night. So Saturn transits at 8 o'clock p.m. And then when does it set? Well, again, I'm just going to keep running those hours forward until Saturn sets. Looks like I get behind my clock here a little bit. I'm going to maximize this so we can see it a little bit easier. Saturn just around 1 o'clock in the morning. So Saturn sets at 1 in the morning. So we'll go over here, 1 o'clock a.m. So time above the horizon, I just have to do a little bit of math. If it rose at 3 p.m. and it sets at 1 a.m., if I do some counting, that's 9.5 hours above the horizon. Well, if I want to figure out how long it's below the horizon, it's just 24 hours minus that 9.5 hours. So that gives me a value of 14.5 hours below the horizon. So when is the best time to view it? Well, the best time to view it is when it transits at midnight. So man, now I got to play with some other stuff here. So let's go ahead and see when Saturn transited at midnight. Now for most of the objects that we're looking at, this will be true for them always. But for Saturn, it's true for us just this year. Planets actually move. So if I want to figure out when Saturn transits at midnight, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set my time to midnight. So here we are pretty darn close to midnight. And then I'm going to manipulate the month until I get Saturn where I want it. So if I run the months forward, Saturn's set, so it means I have to run my months back. So here it's in September. Oh, that's pretty darn close. It looks like Saturn was transiting at midnight right around the beginning of August. So that's when we saw Saturn transiting at midnight. So we go in here, back to our worksheet. When did Saturn transit at midnight? I'm just going to put in August. And that's it. That's how we do this. Your job is to do it for every one of these objects. For some of them, you just type in, just like I did, you know the object, and you put in the rest of the information. And for the other ones, you actually have to figure out what the object is based on its celestial coordinates. Really quickly, how to do that. If you're in here, the celestial coordinates are listed along the equatorial grid here. So let's say I want to find an object that has a declination of 40 and a right ascension of, say, 14. If I want to find that, I just have to look. Here's my 14th hour. I know it looks like it says 4, but it's the 14th right ascension line. So that's this line here. A declination of 40, I can see the number 40 up here. So that means an object would be right there. A declination of 40 and a right ascension of 14. You need to find several objects as well with declinations of 14 hours and 20 and so on. Good luck. If you have any questions, feel free to get by office hours. I will be there.